So when preparing for an inspection, one of the key things from my perspective is making sure that everybody involved in the inspection understands what the regulator is aiming to do, why they're doing what they do, and how they operate, and preparing the subject matter experts so that they can engage in a professional way. The essence of strong inspection performance is all about information transfer. So understanding what information you have, what information the inspectors need, and getting it from you to them in as constructive a way as possible, and being able to respond to questions and challenges in a professional manner. So in terms of practical tools and techniques, the big picture aim is to always be in a strong state of control. So that should always be the goal, so that if there is a regulatory inspection, the preparation required is minimal because you are in a very strong state of control. So that is excellent from a business perspective, it's excellent from a compliance perspective, and the regulators know and recognise and understand when a site is in a strong state of control, which is how it should be. When looking at improvement, training the site in terms of the expectations, especially the subject matter experts, is key. Then preparing the site from a physical perspective to make sure that things are as they should be, and that does involve being out on the plant, understanding what's going on in the manufacturing areas, the engineering areas, the warehousing areas, the laboratory areas, so that that state of control that we should have is actually in place. And then making sure that the data packages that the regulator will be looking for is available and has been reviewed, so that when it's presented, it can be explained and discussed in a constructive way. So the regulatory inspectors that we typically deal with in the UK from the MHRA are a professional and experienced group of people, and because they are experienced, it allows the discussions to be quite constructive, including when there are challenges, which I think really helps as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're going into it with the full transparent approach and communication with the inspectors, because you can't really hide anything, can you? And having that control is vitally important.
Well, in addition to being a QP, I'm also an experienced, globally experienced aircraft auditor. And one of the things I find when I audit or inspect is it's very easy to understand when there is a problem, because people's body language changes, the language that they use changes, how they present data and documentation changes. So, we are people at the end of the day. So trying to hide something is inappropriate and would be unsuccessful anyway with a good inspector. So the aim should always be openness, transparency, and try and do the very best that you can in any given situation. So yes, being prepared, but the preparation should, in an ideal situation, be quite minimal, because you have a strong level of control all of the time. There are when you look across the industry, including beyond the UK, there are some sites and some companies that find it acceptable to work through peaks and troughs. So they will have an approximate schedule for inspections, and as such they try and push their compliance standards, and then after an inspection allow the standards to drop back a little bit. So you end up with peaks and troughs. From my perspective, that is always an unusual approach to take, because it gives you business risk it gives you compliance risk, it gives you patient risks for the people who are taking your products. So I think that, we, from an industry perspective, we often talk about being inspection ready all the time, and the phrase is thrown around quite a lot. But really what we mean is being professional and competent and in control all of the time. Because if the business is in control, the quality and compliance standards are in control, the products will be compliant and suitable for use, and then you will have happy customers, happy patients for all the right reasons. So difficult at times to achieve, but that is what we are in the industry to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So peaks and troughs is definitely not something that you'd be recommending to anyone if they have that sort of mentality and mindset for their organisation.
Absolutely. For me, it is highly unprofessional.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your experience working on these type of projects, Robin. And I'm sure it's quite an eye opener for our listeners, and potentially helps, or it's going to help some organisations who potentially are struggling at the moment. And on to the sort of final subject, and as you know, the QP Diaries is about advising sort of trainees and junior QPs who are just starting their journey to be getting the ambition to being where you are right now in your career. So I suppose taking it back a number of years, what guidance would you offer a younger Robin when starting out as a QP in your training?
So one of the things I found was that there is so much to learn, and when you look at the rules, the regulations, it looks like there is a mountain to get through. And there is, and it's quite difficult, especially when you're training and heading towards the QP Viva. However, from an advice perspective, I would say when you go through the Viva, the assessors are looking at how you can apply that knowledge to real practical situations. And because having a theoretical knowledge without the ability to practically apply will not make a great QP. And I think if you are starting this journey, you've got to have the intention to be a great QP, because you impact people's lives in a very significant way. So I would say do not underestimate the value of learning academically the rules, the regulations, the interpretations, but doing it in a practical way where you are understanding how they are practically applied within a real pharmaceutical situation, how it works in practice, how the laboratories work, how the manufacturing areas work, how the engineering areas work, how you interface with warehouses and distribution networks. So that practical interpretation, for me, I think is absolutely key. Not just in terms of preparing for a Viva, but also in terms of preparing for actually being a real operational QP. As part of that interaction should involve strong interactions with experienced QPs. So that cannot be underestimated, and the QPs that are supporting the development shouldn't just be reviewing application forms and having occasional meetings. They should be guiding the trainee in how to make strong decisions, how to make risk-based decisions so that you do not take excessive risks, and equally you are not so conservative that patients don't get the products they should be getting. So how to walk the balance. When you speak to experienced QPs, they will all have stories to tell, and those stories are really precious. They will tell stories about mistakes they've made. decisions that they've made that were excellent, albeit difficult, and things that they would maybe do differently. And I think that is very valuable to training QPs. And I would also say immerse yourself in the operations. Talk to the people who are doing the job and learn from their experience. QPs do not operate in isolation, and you have to learn to be able to take the pulse of a factory, of a laboratory, so that you can make good decisions.
Yeah, I hear that quite often in terms of not just, I suppose, speaking to the people around you within quality. It is also having that conversation with different departments within the organisation, so you have a well-rounded view of the situation.
And as a QP, to be a good and effective QP, you do need to interact with people from different departments. And it is important for you to have professional credibility outside quality assurance. So when you're talking to laboratory people or engineering people, they can explain how things work or some problems or challenges, and it can be a constructive discussion. So professional credibility is important, and talking to people and listening to people helps build that credibility.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you mentioned at the start of your advice there that there is a lot to learn as a trainee, and so many different environments and companies that they're trying to learn their trade in. What do you believe is the, I suppose, most important personality trait, or any consistent personality traits that you've seen for experienced QPs, and that you would advise for any trainee who needs that sort of boost in confidence at the moment?
So for me, that's a really fascinating question, because I absolutely love the job I do. I love operating as a QP, but I do recognise it is a difficult job, and there is a level of stress that goes with being a QP, because you are a decision maker. So when it comes to important traits for individuals who are looking to be or training to be a QP, I think being able to reflect on risk is really key. So within the industry, we talk a lot about risk-based decision making, and over probably about the last 15 years, it has become increasingly prevalent in how we think, how we operate. And it can sometimes be talked about but not truly implemented. From a QP perspective, risk-based decision making is absolutely key, because the QP role is one where risk is part of the job. The understanding risk and making appropriate decisions is really important. Now, when it comes to releasing batches, there are certain things such as license compliance, which is an absolute. However, when you're looking at some of the GMP compliance aspects, and you may be looking at things like deviations, each deviation will present a level of risk. So it's very easy to be very cavalier, and you could release something that is inappropriate, that you should not release. Equally, it's very easy to be risk averse and not release or reject material that potentially would be suitable for release. So being able to work and understand risk and practically apply it to the QP role, I think, is absolutely fundamental. And there is, I think, a challenge where if you don't immerse yourself in the operations, if you don't understand the complexities, the details, the improvements, the great things that are happening, as a QP, you can become too risk averse. Equally, you can become relaxed and go the other way. So walking that path is difficult. So certainly understanding and being able to act on risk and make good risk-based decisions and be able to justify and explain, I think, is fundamental.